What is the first thing that comes to your mind when we say historical events? Wars and more wars, right? However, there is more to it. Trust us when we say there are some bizarre historical facts. There are many strange historical events that you probably haven't heard of. Here we are presenting you 10 strange and unbelievable historic events of all time that are almost too strange to be true. Don't forget to like this video, hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon for more spooky content. Number 10. Ammo from Enemy. In July of 1714, Peter's ship, the Lavendel's Galley, was involved in a fight with a British captain named Batman. This fight continued for 14 hours and both the ships of Vessel and Batman were severely damaged. What's strange is that after fighting for so long, when Peter had no more ammo left, he asked Batman for more ammo so that the fight could continue. Isn't it thoroughly weird? When Batman refused to provide ammunition to Vessel, the fight came to an end. All the crew members of both ships had a nice drink together and they sailed away in opposite directions. Sounds like a fairy tale to me. Number 9. Trial against tomatoes. In 1820, tomatoes were actually on trial at the Salem courthouse. The people of Salem were confident that tomatoes were extremely toxic. However, a colonel named Robert Gibbon Johnson opposed this. Johnson was a horticulture enthusiast and he had imported tomato plants in 1808 to introduce the people of Salem to this fruit. However, the citizens of Salem were not ready to accept tomatoes and believed they were not edible. During the trial, Colonel Johnson did something strange. He walked straight to the courthouse with a basket full of tomatoes. When he got the attention of the crowd, he started eating the tomatoes one after another. The audiences were terrified as they witnessed Colonel Johnson finishing an entire basket of tomatoes. Much to the surprise of the crowd, Johnson was fine. Afterward, the people of Salem were convinced that tomatoes were not toxic. Number 8. Died of yelling. Valentinian had dominated Western Rome for 364 to 375 CE. Rome was going through a catastrophic phase at that time, and Valentinian certainly was not a wise emperor. He was a brave soldier but had a hot temperament. During his monarchy, a Hungarian tribe called Quadi was residing in the northern Danube region. Valentinian was in constant conflict with this tribe. The Roman emperor received a delegation. The Qadi who sent the delegation demanded to be left in peace as they supplied new troops to the army of Rome. However, this was not it. Before leaving, the group of Qadi agents also claimed that the source of the conflicts between the Valentinian and Qadi was the Roman forts that were built in their lands. These claims of the Qadi agents infuriated the Roman emperor. He started yelling at the agents, and due to so much provocation, a blood vessel in his brain ruptured. Valentinian died after that. Number 7. Atomic tourism. Tourism can consist of many types. However, we are not sure if you have heard of anything called atomic tourism. As strange as it may sound, it is true. From 1950 to 1960, the government had created a craze among tourists to know more about atomic weapons, missiles, and so on. The Tourist Bureau of Las Vegas grabbed this opportunity to attract tourists. They went for a campaign called Atomic Tourism. Nevada test site, a place 65 miles northwest of Las Vegas, was the most common place in the US for testing atomic bombs. This was so because it was an empty desert, but soon this place was turned into a tourist site where guests could witness the testing of atomic bombs. While atomic tourism was a horrific experience for some, Many found it very entertaining. Many tourists would even pack their lunch boxes and have a small picnic while watching some atomic explosions. Number 6. Poison in alcohol. The Prohibition period in the US lasted from 1920 to 1933. The government didn't want the citizens to consume alcohol at that time as selling or consumption of alcohol was illegal then. However, a set of legal rules could not stop US citizens from drinking. As a result, people continued to drink booze unlawfully and a huge boom was noticed in the US black market. To stabilize the situation of the country, the US government had taken a drastic step. The government intentionally added a poisonous substance called methyl alcohol in the grain alcohol to make it toxic. Due to this step taken by the government, the death toll rose to an estimated 10,000. However, as justified by many, the US government did not poison alcohol supplies that were meant for human consumption. They didn't expect the deaths of thousands of individuals. Number 5. Survivor of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. History is the witness of many weird and strange incidents. The story of a Japanese man named Tsutomu Yamaguchi is one of those. Tsutomu Yamaguchi's hometown was Nagasaki, but in 1945, he had gone to Hiroshima for a 3-month-long business trip. On 6 August 1945, Tsutomu Yamaguchi was returning home with his 2 co-workers. He even saw 2 bombers coming down in parachutes before the little boy atomic bomb blew him over. This incident injured him terribly and he was blinded forever. On 9 August 1945, when Tsutomu Yamaguchi was at his workplace, the second atomic bomb Fat Man was dropped on Nagasaki. Even though his office was only 3 kilometers away from the explosion site, Tsutomu Yamaguchi was uninjured this time. Number 4. Phone booth stuffing. One of the strangest historical trends of all time was phone booth stuffing. It was all about people entering a telephone booth consecutively until the booth was completely full. In 1959, the popular trend was popular in South Africa, Britain, Canada, and the US. The phone booth challenge was most common among students. A group of students in South Africa made a record when they stuffed a Durban-based phone booth completely in March 1959. There were 25 students altogether. The tallest of them was of the height 188 cm and the shortest one was 163 cm. The phone booth was stuffed to such an extent that none of them could receive the phone when it rang. Later, a Canadian college claimed that 40 students had occupied a phone booth at once. However, this did not make any records as some rules were violated. Number 3. Coffee was toxic. Even though coffee entered the Swedish market in the 17th century, the kings of Sweden were not fond of it. They even banned coffee and encouraged the citizens to opt for other drinks. When Gustav III became the monarch, he continued the hatred towards coffee. He believed that coffee is toxic and people should abandon it. Gustav even tried to perform a scientific experiment on 2 prisoners to understand if coffee could actually kill a person. He selected these prisoners because both were murderers and were sentenced to death. One of them had to drink coffee 3 times a day, while the other had to drink tea in the same quantity. Gustav was counting the days to their death. He abhorred coffee so much that he thought that the coffee drinkers would die sooner. However, the assumptions of Gustav didn't work and the prisoner survived while the king died in attack in 1792. Now, was that karma? Number 2. Little Rock 9. A group of 9 African American students known as the Little Rock 9 created history in 1957 when they enrolled in Little Rock Central High School, a school which up to that time admitted only whites. In 1954, the Supreme Court had made a decision that public schools were utterly free from segregation. With reference to that, the admission of Little Rock 9 was like a test to see the effectiveness of this decision. The Little Rock 9 had faced several protests and traumatized experiences, including attempts of dropping flaming papers, verbal abuse, and taunts from white students. They even had gone through counseling sessions to prepare them to able to handle such aggressive protests. However, in September 1957, the very first month for the students at the school, protests had become so violent that President Dwight D. Eisenhower had to send 1,200 troopers to escort the 9 students from the school. Number 1. President in underwear? In September 1994, Boris Yeltsin was in the US for a meeting with Bill Clinton. However, Yeltsin was observed in Pennsylvania Avenue in a heavily drunk condition screaming for a taxi. Strangely, he was in his underwear and was craving a pizza. He even refused to go back to Blair House where he was staying. Later in 1995, it was reported that Yeltsin has severe alcohol issues. The entire time Yeltsin was the president of Russia from 1991 to 1999, his alcoholism was a major challenge. Many of his inappropriate behaviors are still recorded on the camera.